Okay. Not sure if I'm recording or not. Yeah, I'm recording. Okay. So, we've talked about compound interest. So that was what we were doing last week. This week we're moving on to something called income tax. And income tax is kind of nice because income tax is something that's really applicable for you guys, because maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, you guys might get summer jobs, or you might even get summer jobs next year, and you'll have to pay tax on the money you earn. So it's important to be able to read your payslip and know what's going on. So income tax, another way of talking about income tax is to call it PAYE. That's the sort of tax that we will be dealing with. There's loads of different sorts of taxes that people have to pay, but the one that's kind of used by everyone, if you're kind of just a standard worker in a shop or in a factory, or so, for example, I pay it as well. Pretty much everyone pays this type of income tax called PAYE. And PAYE stands for pay as you earn. So as you're earning money, you're giving a little bit of it every week to the government, or every month to the government, depending on how you're paid. So pay as you earn. So let's imagine we have this chunk of money coming in every year. So this is our annual salary here of, let's say, maybe in this there might be something like 30,000. So every year let's say I earn 30,000, okay? Now I'm going to get rid of this line for the time being, because you guys don't know about that line yet. So this rectangle, that represents all the money I earn during that year. Now, the government come along and they draw a line on my money, okay? And they tax my money at two different rates. So the money down here is taxed at 20%, and the money up here is taxed at 40%. Okay, so there's 20% on the money below this line, and I have to give the government 40% of the money above the line. And this line, we call this line here, that's called the standard rate cutoff. So it's called that because this 20% here, that's called the standard rate, and this 40% here, that's called the higher rate. So this line is where the standard rate stops happening, and the higher rate takes over. So every single cent that I earn down here below the standard rate, the government takes 20% of it off me. It's a little bit better than that, but we'll talk about that in a second. What I need you to get is that every single cent down here, the government can take 20% of that off me. Every single cent above the standard rate cutoff, the government can tax at 40%. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are so far. It gets us, there's one more thing we need to factor in, but we're pretty much there now. If you can understand that we represent our total income, and there's a line on that income somewhere, and every single cent below that line we tax at 20%, every single cent above that line we tax at 40%. Oh, and the other thing to remember is that these 20% and 40%, they change every year in the budget. So every year the Minister of Finance will change what the standard rate cutoff is, and what the different tax rates are. So the 20% and the 40%. Now, so let's go back to our 30,000 here, and let's say John earns 30,000. So John earns 30,000. Standard rate cutoff for John is 21,000. higher rate is 40%, standard rate is 20%. Calculate John's income tax. Now, because John earns 30,000 and the standard rate cutoff is 21,000, that means he's going to have to give 20% of 21,000 to the government and 40% of 30,000 minus 21,000. So this is the blue piece, this is the higher rate, and this was the red piece, okay? So we'll work both of those out. So 20% multiplied by 21,000 is 4,200, and 40% multiplied by 9,000 is 3,600. So in total, the amount of money that John could end up giving over to the government is 7,800. So that's the total amount of tax that he could end up giving, okay? Now, John knows that John doesn't know this, but the government know that if they take all that money off John, well, John will never vote for them ever again. So the government tried to reduce the amount of tax that John has to pay them. And the way they reduce the amount of tax is through these things called tax credits. So I'm going to put in a little addendum to the question. Tax credits of, I don't know, let's say 3,100. So tax credits are designed to reduce the amount of tax you would otherwise have to pay. So instead of paying 7,800, John will only have to pay 3,100 less than that, which is 4,700. So John only has to pay 4,700 every year. Okay, so he earned 30,000 and he's going to hand over 4,700 euro in income tax, or in PAYE. So that's the structure of the question. Now, some more words that we should be aware of. These words are kind of just English words, but it's important to know the words, okay? So if you're doing business, you probably know these words anyway. 30,000, okay? This figure here, that's the total amount of money that John earns. That's his gross salary. The amount of money that John gets to keep, we would call that his net salary. Okay, so the bigger of the two is always called gross. Okay, the bigger of the two things is always called gross. Now, this figure here, if you remember, that was the amount of tax that he could have ended up paying before it was reduced. So we would call that his gross tax. And when we reduce his tax by his tax credits, we call this thing here his net tax. So John's net tax was 4,700 euro. Okay, That's the standard sort of question there, guys. Right? So let's take a look at let's take a look at okay. Let's take a look at another question. Let's take a look at we've done John. Let's deal with Peter. Peter earns let's say €43,000. Standard rate cutoff I'm not sure if it's 2 words or 1 word. It's cutoff. I think it's 2 words. Standard rate cutoff is, let's say, 21,000 again. And standard rate is equal to 20%. Higher rate is equal to 40%. And the tax credits is, let's say, 3,100 again. Okay, so let's go through it. So this time there won't be any pictures, there won't be any colors, it'll just be straightforward. Let's answer the question. Rightio, 43,000, so it's 21,000. So all of that standard rate cutoff, all that 21,000, every single cent into that is going to be multiplied by 20%. Every single cent above it, so that's 43,000 minus 21,000. That's going to be multiplied by 40%. And there are 2 tax bands. So it's 21,000 multiplied by 20%. That's 4,200. 43, 123 minus 21, 123 equals. Okay, and we have to multiply that by 40%. That gives us 8,800. So the amount of tax that Peter could end up paying plus 4,200 is 13,000. But Peter has these things called tax credits that reduce the 13,000. So we're going to reduce that by the 3,100 to give us 9,900, I think, is it? So that's the amount of tax that Peter will actually have to end up paying. Yeah. Now, so this is my first time teaching ordinary level maths for junior cert, and it looks like you guys, if you're doing ordinary level, you may not have to deal with anything with the higher rate. So I'll have to check that for you, okay? But anyway, in the meantime, while I'm checking that to see if you're only going to have standard rate questions or if you'll also have higher rate questions, I will assign questions, let's say questions 4, 5, and 6 for homework tonight, okay? So questions 4, 5, and 6 on page 92. That's a bit worrying now. Anyway, okay, so questions 4, 5, 6 on page 92. So you guys will have to have a go at those. Now, if there's no higher rate, well, that means all of his money is taxed at the standard rate, okay? So it's going to be a lot easier for you guys without having to work out this 40% business. It's all going to be, so for question 4, for example, all of Leah's money will be taxed at 25%. Okay, so we'll answer those questions. I'll answer some of those questions for you tomorrow. So have a go at those questions tonight, and I will check in with you again tomorrow.